Hey everybody, welcome back to While Supplies Last. This past Valentine's Day weekend, I was both lonely and lucky enough to participate in the network test for Elden Ring NightReign, and I thought I'd just take a moment here to talk about the game and my thoughts on it. To get right into things, the game feels great. Returning Elden Ring players will feel right at home with the basic combat. You've got your basic L2 for Ash of Wars, you got your jump attacks, charged R2. The only thing really missing is your crouch attack, because there's no crouching in NightReign, because this game is on crack. You can run like a madman, clamber, wall jump, grapple, and even fucking fly in some places. And fall damage? I hardly know her.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
There's no fall damage. Everything here is so streamlined. The leveling process is reduced to a single button pressed. Flask upgrades are automatically applied when you find them in the environment, and spells are randomly given to talismans, staffs, and random weapons. I don't know if I ever actually upgraded a weapon during the network test. It was really hard to feel like I had the time for it, and whenever I did have enough time, I usually found out that the smithing stone I was carrying this whole time wasn't actually a smithing stone I needed for my weapon. Again, this is a personal frustration. I only had a couple hours worth of runs to get in, so it's just the growing pains of learning a new game. The first couple of runs of the game felt extremely rushed, like there wasn't enough time to do anything. In later runs, once I had gotten a better understanding of my character and how to actually traverse the map, I had the ability to formulate somewhat of a plan, but playing as a solo player with some randoms without any communication, it was still very much like three random people running around the map and then coming together every now and then to face the same boss. The level seemed identical each time, and not just talking about the limb veil, is that what they're calling it? This like knockoff limb grave area? No, there were a couple runs where the same bosses were in the same areas, or at least the same enemies. And again, I'm not going to levy this as a real complaint against the game. It's obviously just a small slice of a larger package. After me and my team had completed a run, I had noticed more changes to the area and the enemies. So maybe there's some scaling going on behind the scenes that I'm not exactly privy to. One of the things I love most about the Dark Souls games and Elden Ring and FromSoft in general is the amount of deep lore that goes into these handcrafted worlds. With the ever-enclosing circle in NightReign, taking the time to appreciate the little things just didn't feel reasonable. For me, it was a weird back and forth of the constant rush of feeling like I needed to find the next enemy, find the next upgrade, and the internal desire to stop and try and take things in and piece together what this world was about. So deep lore exploration is going to have to be a much more drawn out process, with only limited time to get to certain parts of the map. And of course, I can't help but worry that this kind of exploration will be fruitless. Maybe NightReign is a game purely revolving around the gameplay loop, and any story or world building is just haphazardly thrown on for the sake of it. Regardless, I can't judge this game based on any of that, because again, it's still just a network test. We're going to wait and see what the full package is like. Traversing the map in NightReign can be difficult. It can be really hard to know where you're going and where to go at times. There were these random holes in the ground that would sometimes drop into a dungeon, and if I didn't know about them ahead of time, I would be genuinely lost as to where my teammates went. There's some weird geography on the map that can sometimes make it really easy to get cornered, and this is only exacerbated with the enclosing circle, but I kind of imagine that's a design choice where you just gotta plan ahead, and as you familiarize yourself with the map, these things become easier and easier. This game is gonna absolutely be the best with a trio of players who are communicating on mics. I didn't have that luxury. I was playing on Xbox and didn't have any friends who made it into the network test, or maybe even applied, because I'm pretty much the biggest nerd in my friend group. And nobody I played with seemed to have mics. Not that I had my mic connected either, so I guess I'm not really part of the solution here. But I've also seen from other content creators' videos on this that unless you had a pre-established party and all happened to queue up at the same time, there really wasn't a way to communicate with your teammates. And that's a huge thing, because sticking together with your teammates, it's a huge thing because it's really easy to lose your teammates. Besides all the dungeons and the verticality of the map, everybody moves like a fucking crackhead. Everybody moves so fast that once you get hyper focused on an objective or an item and start running towards it, the distance between you and your teammate gets farther and farther with each random objective you go running after. Honestly, Elden Ring NightReign reminds me a lot of a mod. Just before the network test, I had finished playing the Dark Souls 3 Convergence mod, which that's a great fucking mod. Highly recommend it. The entire time I was playing the network test, I couldn't shake this feeling that it just felt like a boss rush mod. And, for better or worse, I think it's a really cool experimentation that FromSoft is doing here. And, I'll give them benefit of the doubt. It's not necessarily a bad thing that the game feels like a mod. There are plenty of mods that flat out improve on a game's experience, and plenty of games that have been born out of mods. It's just a feeling I couldn't shake, and I thought I had to mention. Probably my most legitimate complaint is this UI needs cleaned up. We're getting dangerously close to the meme about if Ubisoft designed Elden Ring, what that UI would look like. There were a couple bosses where there were 3 health bars on screen, and the amount of space that took up was obnoxious. I'm sure I'm not the only person to have mentioned this, and to be fair, a much worse developer would have made a bigger mess of this UI. It's not perfect, and it's not the worst UI I've ever seen, but I would like to see this cleaned up a little bit. I also didn't love how you selected the usable items. They made it so your flask is always going to be X or square or whatever the fuck you people who use keyboard and mouse to play these games use. Instead, for consumables, you would press down on the D-pad to toggle through all of the ones that you had collected, and then you would press up on the D-pad to use it. This took me like 3 or 4 games to figure out, and just, this doesn't feel ergonomic. This doesn't feel streamlined. This feels very obtuse and unnecessary. Same with the weird UI for coming up to select it. And this is only a real issue because, we already have Elden Ring. We already have Dark Souls. We already have so many years of experience of, A, the players expecting how this should work, and B, the developers already figured out how to make it work. So I don't understand why we're retreading this, but growing pains, right? That's what it's all about, growing pains. I do have some concerns about how this game will appeal to some of the hardcore aspects of the FromSoft fans. Sadist solo challenge runners absolutely have their work cut out for them, but I have no doubt that they will find a way to make it work. I'm worried about the casual FromSoft fans who might not have 2 or 3 friends who are into these games, or who are even willing to drop $40 on a spin-off of Elden Ring if they already bounced off that initial game. It's also vastly different enough from the normal Elden Ring and Dark Souls experience that I'm worried a large chunk of the player base is just going to bounce off this, or it's not going to be what they're expecting. Not to say that this isn't difficult iframe based combat, but there's just so much going on here at times. It almost feels more like Dynasty Warriors or some typical action adventure RPG than, handcrafted worlds of a FromSoft game, where the weight of swinging your sword matters just as much as the wind-up time to roll through the enemy's attack. It's definitely a new direction for these games, and to be fair, I'm absolutely going to be giving FromSoft the benefit of the doubt. If you want to look back on FromSoft's track record and say that Dark Souls 2 is the worst Souls game that they put out, that's still a fucking banger. And frankly, FromSoft has enough goodwill with the gaming community as a large that I think a lot of people are going to give them the benefit of the doubt. Any other gaming company would be getting called out for doing an asset flip cash grab, but not FromSoft. I'm willing to try whatever these guys are cooking, and I'm excited to see what they wind up doing with this full game. Even if it's just here to hold us over until the next large FromSoft action RPG, I'm fine with FromSoft trying new things because they've been so good about everything before. Oh, let me talk about the fucking demi-human boss fight real quick. Let me talk about the boss fights in general. The demi-human queen and little swordsman boss fight was a lot of fun, honestly. There was a lot of chaos going on, and anytime we would beat the demi-human queen first, we would gang up on that little swordsman so hard. I also thought it was really cool seeing the centipede demon in Elden Ring's engine. The boss fight was great. There were a lot of moves that I didn't recognize, and I also noticed that the limbs being cut off seemed to matter a bit more for the fight. Like, that actually contributed to the overall pace of the fight, and we did have to have at least one player break off and deal with the mini centipedes that got cut off of the larger centipede demon. The new boss, I forget what the new boss was called, but the triple fire dog, that was a really good fight. I only got to fight him twice, and I beat him both times with my team. Not at all to say that it was an easy fight. It felt like a mid to late game Elden Ring boss fight, and it was obviously scaled up for 3 different players. But if this is the tone and the approach that FromSoft is taking towards integrating bosses from older games into NightReign, and for any of the new bosses in NightReign, I'm particularly excited. These guys always cook with their bosses, and I've got no reason to think it's any different here. It's an absolute spectacle, and it keeps you on your toes the whole time. Overall, I'd say my time with the network test was fun. The fast-paced nature of the game is more fun than I expected it to be, and each of the characters has a really unique playstyle that makes me excited to see the other characters that are added at release, and assuming there's more trickle-down content for this game. Anyway, I hope any of that makes sense, because I recorded this in a very weird, bouncing around type way. This pretty much wraps up my thoughts on the Elden Ring NightReign network test. If you have any questions about it, feel free to let me know in the comments, and I'll answer them to the best of my ability. And let me know in the comments below what you think of NightReign so far. Are you excited for it to come out? Have you already pre-ordered it? Are you not at all interested in this and think FromSoft has just made a deal with the devil and is doing a spineless cash grab? You're entitled to that. You're entitled to that opinion. I disagree with you, but you're entitled to that. Anyway, this video is over now. But thanks for coming by and listening to me yap about a game that no one's going to be able to play for a few months. I will see you next time, while supplies last.